Alright, so this is a suggestion via a donation. The name of the video is What's Under the Ice in Antarctica? Let's check it out. Guys, I'm definitely hoping for like aliens or like Atlantis or some full-blown society that we've never encountered.
If you want to spend a long time in this place, you may need to consider taking health precautions, such as having your wisdom teeth removed or getting an appendectomy in advance. There are absolutely no reptiles or amphibians here, and all land mammals are brought exclusively by humans. There's been no rain here for almost 2 million years, but at the same time, 80% of the world's freshwater reserves are stored here. Antarctica, the coldest and probably the most mysterious continent on the planet. Over the past century, humanity has studied its surface quite well, but we all know that what's most interesting is usually hidden deep beneath. When scientists decided to look under the ice cover of Antarctica, what they saw there surprised not only ordinary people like me, but also the researchers themselves. So what is hidden deep beneath these huge sheets of ice? For a long time, scientists have believed that under the immense thickness of ice, there's nothing particularly interesting. At most, maybe some small, scattered pockets of subglacial groundwater. However, the expectations that researchers had in the 90s have been exceeded. As it turns out, under the ice of Antarctica, there's a whole lake, and it's also quite large, about 5,800 square miles, or 15,000 square kilometers, which is about 1.5 times the size of the island of Cyprus. The depth of the reservoir reaches 4,000 feet, over 1,200 meters. This is only 1,450 feet, or 442 meters less than in the deepest lake on the planet, Baikal. Since this reservoir was discovered near the Russian polar station Vostok, the lake was also called Vostok. This giant pond is hidden under a huge layer of ice with a thickness of 11,886 feet, or 3,623 meters. For this reason, the researchers did not expect to find even the smallest signs of life in such harsh conditions.
Okay, there probably is definitely some type of life. I know there's some type of fish that actually like swim around that region. So, I mean, obviously the penguins have to eat, right? These are fish that just won't freeze, right? I'm not suspecting specifically fish, but probably some type of something we haven't seen in forever. Guys, I really don't like digging too deeply into the ice in Antarctica, guys. You never know what you're going to bring up, if that makes any sense. Or maybe I've just seen way too many science fiction movies and TV shows where when you dig into something, you bring something up, some type of new plague that went away, very, very long time ago, guys, right? I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way, let's say, guys.
After all, the temperature near the lake reaches minus 128.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 89 Celsius. The ice pressure exceeds the pressure of the icy crust of the moons of Jupiter, and sunlight never breaks through to the surface of the lake. In addition, the concentration of nitrogen and oxygen is 50 times higher than in ordinary freshwater lakes. Few organisms living on planet Earth can survive in such an adverse environment.
Okay, well, now that you give me the temperatures, yeah, there's nothing there. At least not anything that has a heartbeat, let's say. Maybe something microbial.
However, scientists still managed to find life in such extreme conditions. At the same time, it was completely unlike anything we had ever seen before. Researchers have discovered a new type of bacteria, which was given the name W123-10.
Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, this is right there. Right there, this proves it.
The DNA of this organism is only 86% identical to other living things on planet Earth. The reason is that the lake was isolated from the rest of the world for several million years.
Right,
so the bacteria found there developed separately from all living organisms on our planet. Researchers later discovered that there were traces of about 3,500 species of living organisms in the lake. This number is disputed by some scientists, but the very fact of the existence of different forms of life has led researchers to a very important hypothesis. Since there are probably such lakes under the ice of Mars and the satellite of Jupiter, Europa, it's quite possible that life could also exist in those places. By the way, Vostok is...
Like, that's my general opinion anyway. I think that if does life exist on other planets? Absolutely. But I think for the most part, we're speculating that it's going to be some type of like humanoid creature. It's probably not. It's probably this.
Far from the only subglacial lake. Willans and Ellsworth are two other large lakes in Antarctica. According to John Priscu, a professor of polar ecology from the University of Montana, the total number of ice lakes might be as many as 400. However, not all cavities under the ice of Antarctica are filled with water. One of these places is located under the glaciers of Marie Byrd Land. This is the Bentley Depression, which is the deepest continental point on the planet that is not filled with liquid water, about 8,215 feet, or 2,540 meters below sea level. Similar discoveries were made with the help of space sensors, which scanned the relief of Antarctica in both directions. As it turned out, the ice is distributed very unevenly. The ice of eastern Antarctica is slightly thicker, from 25 to 30 miles, or 40 to 48 kilometers. And in the western part of the continent, the ice thickens to between 12 and 22 miles, or 19 and 35 kilometers. Such heterogeneity is due to the fact that under the ice of eastern Antarctica, a whole cemetery is hiding, consisting of the remains of the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana. Scientists call these remains cratons, which are the stable rocky cores of the continents that survived hundreds of millions of years of destructive tectonic activity.
I mean, listen, Antarctica is going to be full of like a lot of things that we have just forgotten, like as a human society, let's say, right? I expect that we are going to find a whole lot there. I'm not saying I want it to all melt, right? That'll pretty much rise sea levels drastically. But I kind of want it all to melt so I can see it personally. But I don't, because of all the dangers that surround that thing.
The Earth. There are at least 3 such cratons in East Antarctica. One of them is very similar to the rocks of Australia, the second to India, and the third to the seabed. Perhaps these fragments came together 1 billion years ago when the supercontinent Rodinia formed, or maybe 500 million years ago with the advent of Gondwana. In any case, cratons were part of the continents that formed after the collapse of Gondwana 160 million years ago. Scientists didn't limit their research to observations from outer space and decided to drill a hole in order to study the secrets of Antarctica more closely. The research team used a special 2-foot, about 60 centimeter wide drill with...
Guys, do you remember, if you've ever watched X-Files, there was an episode where they basically went into the forest or so, and they met some like tree activists, right? And then out of nowhere, people started disappearing. And this was when they cut into a tree they should not have cut into. And one ring was like green and all types of craziness, basically saying that something happened a very long time ago, one very specific year. And that was released into the population, right? They were like spores. And they started basically just demolishing people. It was some alien being, kind of, right? I kind of attribute that to what happened in the year 555, and 536, when Krakatoa erupted and basically shrouded the Earth in kind of like an ash cloud, right? And where if you cut down trees that were around at that time, I guess the closer you were to the northern hemisphere at that time, at least, you'd see like there was something weird about that ring, right? But the most frightening thing about that for me is that imagine if something like that actually was to happen again, or has happened before much longer ago, right? And gave the world a plague similar to like what happened during 535 and 536, like the Justinian plague. You get what I'm saying here, guys? Like, imagine if something was to replague us that happened, a million years ago, or as they're saying here, let's say 100 million years ago, guys. Imagine. I don't want that. But I do want it to melt, but I know by it melting, it means more things are being released into the atmosphere. Then obviously we'll get into our water table. Then we'll spread most likely first to South America, right? Patagonia region. And just, guys, I want it to melt. I want to see it. But I also don't want people to just, be obliterated by some plague that ended, 10 million years ago.
With hot water. Using this tool, after 63 hours of continuous operation, scientists were able to drill a hole with a depth of 7,060 feet. That's about 2,152 meters.
Bro, stop drilling.
Then the researchers measured the water pressure and the ice temperature, as well as the degrees of its deformation. Thanks to this, scientists hope to determine when the last time was that the ice sheet of Antarctica disappeared, and when this might happen again. Also, the scientists plan to drill a few more holes. However, holes also appear in Antarctica that are not man-made. A few years ago, the whole world was alarmed by a huge hole of about 3,700 square miles, or 9,583 square kilometers in size. This is almost twice the size of the state of Rhode Island. Scientists have...
And listen, I get it. That's massive, but Rhode Island is
not seen such giant holes since the 1970s, so they could not immediately identify the cause of this hole that researchers called wormwood. However, an answer was soon found. It was caused by a cyclone. In September 2017, streams of warm and cold air collided at the South Pole, resulting in the formation of swirling winds reaching a speed of 72 miles or 117 kilometers per hour. Such powerful turbulence created huge waves of up to 52 feet or 16 meters high, which in turn pushed out large chunks of ice and thereby formed a huge hole. In addition, strong winds brought warm water to the cold Lazarev Sea, in which there are ice massifs. As a result, the ice began to melt, which also contributed to the emergence of a hole. Soon, it will grow to 37,000 square miles. That's about 95,829 square kilometers, and will then be about the size of Ireland. Torgay Martin, a meteorologist and climate modeler at the Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel, Germany, believes that the number of cyclones that trigger these holes will only increase in the future. At the same time, given climate change, refreezing of holes will be much slower, so the ice melt in Antarctica will accelerate. However, Diana Francis, a specialist in atmospheric climate, believes that we shouldn't be afraid of this. On the contrary, the formation of such holes promotes better circulation between the ocean and the atmosphere. And for Antarctic animals such as penguins or seals, this opens up new food sources. But at the same time, Francis does not deny that the large size of holes affects the circulation of the ocean, and therefore could lead to global climate change. So scientists will continue to...
And a lot of countries mainly in like Polynesia are going to be suffering massively. I mean, they're already basically on the sea level. Kiribati being probably the main one.
To observe from space to try to be able to control the state of this ice continent. One of these observations occurred in 2019, and it seems to have inspired some hope. Researchers have noticed a mountain-like geological structure that separates the western and eastern parts of Antarctica. This line protects the largest glacier in Antarctica, the Ross Glacier, from the entry of warm water, and prevents large chunks of ice from spreading into the ocean. If not for this dividing line, the rate of entry of Antarctic subglacial groundwater into the ocean would increase by 20%, which could lead to an increase in global sea level by 38 feet, or 11.6 meters. But this does not necessarily mean that we're completely safe. After all,
all of the lowlands everywhere would suffer from this instantly. A lot of the east coast of America, I would say mainly like South Carolina area, Charleston, all those little islands will be gone, basically. 38 feet, most of Florida. Guys, this would be terrible.
Next to the giant glacier, there's also another hole, which causes intense melting of the glacier in the summer months. Therefore, it seems quite possible that the complete melting of Antarctica is only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Antarctica is so far from most of us, our future completely depends on this continent. This is 80% of the world's freshwater reserves, and if they go into the ocean, even cities that are the farthest from Antarctica will sink underwater. If you want a future video on this subject, let me know.
If 20% will yield a 38-foot increase in the ocean, that's crazy. All right, just understand that's absolutely wild. I'll probably live full-time in Spain by then, because where I live on a mountain, and I am multiple thousands of feet up into the sky in Spain. So, move, basically, right? But all right, listen, let me know in the comments the next one of these or subjects we should be checking out, and I will get into that as soon as I possibly can. All right? Listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly.